Hello and welcome to another edition of the Finks D-backs podcast here on the Finks Network. My name is Derek Monti. Of course, I'm your mayor of Finks. This guy next to me is definitely not Jesse Friedman,
Nope.
But we're going to go ahead and call him the vice mayor of Wrigleyville. It is Ryan Herrera from CHGO Cubs. Ryan, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
How have you been enjoying the terrible weather that you brought into town with you?
I'm sorry.
I don't approve of that.
I was gonna say I'm sorry for bringing some of the Chicago winter down to Arizona.
Sucks.
I was telling someone earlier, like, when we came down here last year, I forgot that it was like mid-March for spring training. So it was like nice out. It was like March 11th or whatever it was. It was nice out. So when I'm packing for this trip and one of the other Cubs riders tells me, like, yeah, it's cold as shit. Like, make sure you bring some like pans and whatever. I'm like, what do you mean it's cold? I'm like,
it's Phoenix.
it's mid-February. Okay, that makes sense.
This is our winter. This is when we get winter. But of course, this show is brought to you by the fine folks at the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Excited to have Ryan here. And of course, I know that this isn't your first time here in Arizona. You came out for spring training previously. But I got to ask, is there any city that you've traveled to where people from Chicago feel so welcomed with all of your eateries and everything that we've expanded out here to be like Chicago South?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know that I've ever like really noticed it, but I mean, you think about it, there's a lot of Chicago people in Phoenix.
There is,
a lot of people like migrate out here. It's here, like somewhere in Florida.
It's like people from New York go to Florida to retire, and people from Chicago come to Phoenix.
Exactly. So like, this is like even like a vacation spot. Like people from Chicago, it's like it's winter. It's like, oh, let's go down to Arizona or something. So I would agree. I mean, I've never like personally tried to like or felt that, but I'm like, if I were to pick a place where you go down there and you kind of feel a little more like home still, it's gotta be Phoenix.
Nice. That's and we love your food, so we'll be happy to share
there you go.
All of that with you. But updates again today from the Arizona Diamondbacks camp. I know you were out at the Chicago Cubs camp. Did anything stick out to you? Has there been anything weird this spring with the Cubs? I know you guys are kind of in a I feel like the Cubs are in a similar position as the Diamondbacks, where we're trying to find a way right now to not let this, to regaining success for the franchise, and try not to like have it too far away, but it still feels like there's some pieces missing.
Well, here's one thing from today, and it's not that big, but some people care about it. It's like Cody Bellinger, someone that you guys know good and well.
Friend of the team.
Cody Bellinger homered during live BP today. And again, it's just live BP. It's not real game, but I guess if you were to say it's like as close to a real game scenario as you get during spring training, really. So it was pretty, and it was lefty off lefty too. So nice. That is like, considering he hasn't been at that level in like 3 years.
Sure.
For Cubs fans hoping he actually starts to find that MVP form again while he's here, because I don't know for sure that he'll be back next year. He's got the 1 year contract and you know all that, whatever. For any Cubs fans hoping that it's kind of a hopefully rebound season for him, like that's a good sign this early in camp. Him kind of taking Drew Smyly deep. We'll see. Long way to go till the season starts.
It's hard not to overreact sometimes to that stuff in camp because, like, when obviously when the pitchers are throwing BP, batting practice for you, Jesse. It's when they're throwing this at this time of the year, they're not going 100%, and it's kind of easy to get excited sometimes about things, especially offensively. I know. I get jazzed to see them just in the cage, like just to see them smashing in the cage. Like Christian Walker was really dialed in the cage. And I mean, again, it's just, it's light toss off of a coach or a machine, but it's just exciting during this time of the year to kind of see these guys getting into shape and kind of being dialed in at this point.
Yeah, well, and then like yesterday it was windy as hell.
Yeah.
I don't know how it was down at Salt River Field.
Oh, it was terrible.
It's slow and it was pretty terrible. Bad. But the wind was blowing perfectly out, and some, Trey Mancini, Dansby Swanson, Eric Hosmer, all were hitting balls way out of the park. Yeah. And not saying those guys don't have home run power, but it was also like the wind was there. And as far as Wrigley Field goes, Wrigley in April is the wind coming off the lake. It's windy as hell. You never know what you're gonna get. Wrigley in April on every given day. So it's like all these new guys are coming in, and hey, here's Wrigley. That's what Wrigley's going to be like in a month.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I mean, I feel like the Cubs coaches would definitely use a day like that to be like, oh yeah, no, we're doing outfield drills, we're doing all sorts of shit because this is the perfect kind of condition to train in.
This is exactly what Wrigley. One of the days in April, it's going to be just like this. You don't know what day it's going to be, but it's going to happen. And hey, you know what? Here's a taste. Like, get used to it.
Yeah. Are there any concerns about the new rules at the Cubs camp? Is there been any talk about it being like a sore point or anything? I know we've talked about Torey basically trying to set the mindset that it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're not going to complain about it. We're just going to accept it, and we're going to try to figure out how to adapt to it to the best that we can.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like, I think it's more like, anyone's resistant to change, right? Like, no one likes change.
Nobody likes having a job and then fucking being told that you have new duties now.
Yeah, like, you have to change the way you've done everything.
I'm sure even the umpires were like, I have to do what now? I have to what? I have to keep an eye on that clock and the batter and the pitcher and still call the strike zone? Like, what the hell?
So no one likes it. Like, but it's every player understands, like, you're going to get used to it. And, I talked to the Cubs, one of their assistant pitching coaches the other day, and he had such a good line. He's basically said, I even asked him, I'm like, have you felt any sort of resistance from guys? Like, not saying that guys are just absolutely hate it and aren't doing it, but just like, are they like, were they initially hesitant to try? And he's like, well, if they are, like, pretty much like tough shit. Like, he didn't say that word for word, but it's like, it's kind of tough shit. He said, like, if you want to go and if you want to go and start every batter off 1-0, then you keep pitching slow. Otherwise, get used to it because it's here, right? Yeah. So that's basically what he told me, and I'm like, that is such a good way of looking at it. Is like, you can be as resistant as you want to it and hate the fact that it's happening, but it's here, and at least for this season, you never know how long it's going to last, but at least for this season, it's going to be here. So you either get used to it or you're starting every guy off 1-0.
In the words of Macho Man, you may not like it, but you will accept it.
See, I get that reference.
This guy gets that reference.
Jesse
I can
doesn't.
That, right.
I get the reference. Right. I know Jesse would hate it.
Ryan was present when Jesse basically made the revelation to the table that he did not know that pro wrestling was scripted, and I still lose sleep at night thinking about that fact that Jesse did not know.
I totally thought he was fucking around with us. I thought he was just like, oh yeah, it's really not real. And then he was legitimately like, it's not real. I'm like, Jesse, where have you been? Like,
how is it not the coolest fucking thing in the world if it wasn't real? There is a man named The Undertaker that at one point decided to randomly ditch the fact that he was a demon for the fact that he was a biker and he rode a motorcycle down to the ring. Don't even get me started.
And he got buried alive and then came back.
Got buried alive and he gets it in cement.
So good.
Okay. Well, it was interesting to me because I know Torey has definitely voiced his concerns, and he had the similar attitude, right? He had that's what you're talking about, which is like, again, tough shit. If you don't, there's no going away. There's not going to make a special exception for you. And unless you learn how to adapt to this, you're not going to be good at a major league level, essentially, because these rules aren't going away. So I asked Torey today about if he, if he's thinking about these rules and if he's kind of like, basically trying to figure out a way that they can capitalize on them with this team's speed and some of the other advantages they could potentially add. And his answer was kind of great, that he basically talks about or thinks about it all the time.
I think about it a lot, to be honest with you. I probably am a little hypersensitive to it. I don't like to be exploited as a team and have that defensive feeling. I want us to attack all the time with everything that we're doing. So when there are some new normals that we're all getting used to, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get punched and counterpunched more than anything. So, like I said a few days ago, Gil Velasquez said to me, "You're worried about it. I respect it, but it's not going to be a big difference maker for you. But let's continue talking about it." Has been my mindset, and I appreciated that. And I've had a few people tell me that have had experience with these rules, but we talk about it a lot, and we're making sure our pitchers are ready to execute and our batters are in the box comfortable and ready to go. That, to me, is the first coordinate. Once we get there, we'll figure out what teams are doing. And we're going to let the games play out a little bit and then continue to have some conversations. But players are smart. They'll make adjustments, and they'll come to us with suggestions with how to exploit it. Something I believe in. Player sight lines are way better between the white lines than ours. So if they have ideas, we're going to implement them.
And that last part was actually very important because I've seen the players out there having these conversations, kind of conceptualizing what they can do to gain an advantage in these rule situations. My favorite, Patrick and I yesterday were talking about some of the things, but Patrick brought up the idea of literally flopping now occurring in Major League Baseball just to get more time, or, like in the meeting the other day for the MLB rules, they brought up that some teams brought up the idea of putting a man in motion to get them over on the other side of second base, but still basically be applying to the rules up until that point. Major League Baseball did say some things are still going to be off the table like that. Like they're not going to allow you to send a man in motion over there. And the funny thing about it was they said, they're like, I don't even know how helpful that really would be. Like, seriously. You know?
Well, because I remember, I think it was like Ali Marmol, the manager of the Cardinals, that said explicitly, like, MLB told them, like, we put these rules in place for a reason. We don't want you trying to skirt these rules. So if you start doing crap that's going to skirt the rules, like, we are going to put into writing more stuff that you can't do.
We'll just add it to the rules. We'll just make that thing illegal.
Which I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. But I'm wondering if, and this is again something we discussed yesterday, if what we'll see is them adapt to some of the rules that might not work out. Like, again, to me, the biggest thing is the disengagements. Like, everything else kind of makes sense and it doesn't bother me. But when I started really hearing the details about pitchers stepping off and throwing over and how limited that's going to be, it really kind of like, I'm like, I think that's the part that a lot of, especially pitchers, are going to really struggle with. Not the clock itself, but that portion of it.
And hitters too. Like, hitters, what do they have? One, they can step out of the box one time, call timeout once during the plate appearance. And I remember, and this is another thing that's specifically for the Cubs because, you know, April at Wrigley is so weird the weather-wise. But I remember Ian Happ talking about it. He's a Cubs left fielder when this all got announced last year. And he was saying, like, sometimes in April, the wind is just blowing in your face at the plate, and you need to step out to kind of, you know, collect yourself. And he's like, if I do that,
your eyes are tearing up and shit. Like,
so
totally.
He's like, I can only do that one time now. And if I do that again, then it's a strike or whatever it is, right? So, like, there's a whole, and that, again, that's not something you guys will experience in Arizona, but, like, that's, for the Cubs side, like, that's a big thing, but it's just another example of, like, how much these players are gonna, like, really have to acclimate to these rules quickly because once they get into the season, like, it's fair. Everything's fair game. You make the mistake, then it's on you. If you start a guy out with a ball or a strike.
And it's going to be amplified when it's in a critical situation, right? When that strike, when that walk, when that balk leads to, like, the game-winning run scoring or something like that, I think that's when it'll come under scrutiny. But for the most part, I think we'll be okay, right? But there's another thing that's kind of impacting spring camp right now, and that is the players participating in the World Baseball Classic. I know you guys have 16, 17 guys, something like that, participating.
17 throughout. The Cubs have 17 throughout the organization participating in World Baseball Classic.
But you also have some of your best players also participating in it. I know the Diamondbacks have Merrill Kelly, one of their best pitchers. You guys have Marcus Stroman pitching on my team of Puerto Rico. Also, Seiya Suzuki on Team Japan. So, like, do you notice, having been out there to spring camp before, do you feel like, and it's hard because I feel like we're judging it against the last 2 years, which have not been normal, right? But do you feel like they're kind of ahead of schedule because they're trying to get those particular guys extra, like that time, right? Like, everybody seems very prepared, but it feels like they're, like, yesterday they were already doing a sim game against a Korean baseball team. And, you know, it just seems like at this point of camp, like, they're fairly ahead of schedule where they normally would be.
I think so. I think that plays a part in it, and it's also, like, guys excited to have a real spring training for the first time. Anyone, right? But I do think the whole WBC plays a part of it because every team knows, you know, however many players they have on their team, they only got another week and a half max with these guys before they start going off where they have to go. So teams want to get, especially, like, so I look at Seiya Suzuki, like Marcus Stroman. I don't think the Cubs worry about him. I think he's a guy that does all the offseason work he needs to do. He's been in the game long enough. He knows what he needs to do during the offseason, whatever. But, like, Seiya Suzuki is a guy that is only his second year in America. Like, he came in last March, was his first. Like, he had to, number one, had to acclimate to the just America in general, you know, in year one. It's only his second year. He's still trying to learn the league. He's in his second year. He's technically, he's only like he's a sophomore in the league, right? So he's still trying to acclimate to the game, and now you have all these rules changes, and then that doesn't even include all the off the field stuff, like the culture and all that stuff. And now they only got, like, I don't know, I'd say 10 days until he leaves. He doesn't know exactly when he's going to leave is the big thing. Like, they haven't finalized that yet, but it's going to be it's going to be in the near future.
Yeah, it's so weird considering how close it is that they haven't finalized that. It's
going to be early March. Probably first week of March at, like, the latest. I think March 8th is the first is when World Baseball Classic starts. So it's got to be within the first few days of March. So we're coming up on it right now. But he's someone, again, I don't think the Cubs worry about him, but it's another thing where it's like, this is a guy that's still trying to acclimate to America and this game, and now he's going to leave the team for what could be about 3 weeks or so, something like that. While he tries to win a World Baseball Classic for Team Japan. And the Cubs, to their credit, have been just hugely supportive of anyone that wants to do that. And even say Suzuki wants to go play for Team Japan, go ahead.
True.
Marcus Stroman, Team Puerto Rico, go ahead. Like all these guys that want to play for their teams, because it comes around once every, I guess it would be 6 years right now, but it's more like a 4-year thing when it happens. It's a pretty big thing for some of these guys, and they're supportive of it. But it's another thing where they're like, okay, well, we only have this certain amount of time before he leaves. We got to get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
So it's a long-winded answer to say, yeah, I agree with you that these teams are understanding that they have limited time with these guys to start spring. They got to get moving.
Yeah. Brett Johnson in the comments says, seeing Torey's beard go from 85% brown to like all gray is making me sad. What about me, Brett? Go watch videos from a year ago. This place has aged me by 50 years in the last year. I
think Jesse has like 90%.
Yes, he's right. See, he gets it. He spent one dinner with him and he already understands. It does give off Gandalf vibes. You're not wrong, but that also makes him a wizard. So hopefully that means the Diamondbacks will have some good things happen this year. Speaking of baseball and Merrill Kelly pitching, by the way, let's take a look again at this beautiful shot of baseball being played out at Salt River Fields yesterday. This was the Arizona Diamondbacks versus the Kaiwoom Heroes, and it's just a little shot I took, but it's just a beautiful shot of baseball actually occurring. You got that, Damon? Look at that. Can we talk over this one? Yeah, I mean that just gets the blood pumping. Also, if you heard that scream right now, that was a Korean home plate umpire with just mid-season form strike calls that I could not believe. In an empty stadium, nonetheless. He had no reason to be putting on that show for us, but he still did it, and I love him for it. But
I want to touch on that. You mentioned it's just like baseball, right?
Yeah.
And today, the Cubs, and it was most of the guys that you're like, okay, this guy is going to be on the major league team, right? And they did the pregame, like infield, outfield type stuff.
Yeah.
And they're all crisp, throwing home, like all the little drills, the warm ups before you do before a baseball game. And I'm like, holy crap! Like, number one, this is like my favorite thing to watch.
Yeah.
Not even the game itself, it's just like how easy these dudes make it look. And because I know, like, having grown up playing baseball, I know this stuff is not that easy.
I know.
These dudes make it look like the easiest thing in the world, and I'm like, and I get it, they're professionals, yes, but it's so just like nice to watch. Just one of those like aesthetically pleasing type things to watch. It's a guy like from left field throwing home straight to a perfect cutoff man who gives a perfect strike to home.
This guy gets it.
Oh my God, it's the best thing in the world.
It gets your blood pumping. You know what I mean? But I think the other thing about it too is like there's just something to be said about like, and I brought this up a bunch of times, seeing these guys run the drills that in Little League they told us big leaguers ran, and you're like, bullshit. Yeah. No way they do. Like, no way, they don't do this. They don't roll the ball softly on the ground to each other just to get the feel of what it feels like to first pick up a ball off the ground. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And as small and ridiculous as the drill is, they do it at a major league level and they build their way up. That's the reason why baseball is just such a different sport too. When someone gets injured or whatever, you're like, no, they literally start from square one to build this person back up to being able to throw 90 pitches in a game or whatever the case may be. So
like, here's another thing. One of the Cubs rehabbing guys, he had Tommy John in like July. He says he is only now throwing from 75 feet up to 75 feet.
Man.
And that he has to do that for 3 weeks, 90 feet for 3 weeks, 105, 120, all for 3 weeks. And I think it was like a deload for 2 weeks, come back and throw it one. Like and I get it. It's Tommy John. Like, it's the most intricate kind of elbow surgery guys get.
And it's the one that could literally end your career potentially if you don't, if you can't come back from
it.
Right?
That's how slow these guys have to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But we did talk to, I asked Torey today about Merrill Kelly, about getting prepared for the World Baseball Classic and about the fact that they played this sim game yesterday. And he said that, and he's talked about the guys being ready coming into camp, that a lot of the guys, he was just very proud of how ready a lot of the guys were before they even stepped foot at Salt River Fields, or at least until the official start date, because a lot of them were there at Salt River Fields already working out. But this is what he had to say about Merrill Kelly and just kind of the timeline being a bit expedited to get him ready for the World Baseball Classic.
I think he's right on. So there's strategy to him throwing yesterday and getting that game clock started. And it was 1 inning, 20 plus pitches, and he was executing. And I'm not surprised at all. The way the ball comes out of his hand is very consistent with what I remember last year. And he's a great worker. He knows what he wants to get to. But we're prioritizing getting him up to that pitch count where we're going to be comfortable saying go ahead and do your job at the highest level the best way you know how. And that's up to us to make sure that he's as ready as he can be before he steps out of here.
Now, and you said that the Cubs were very supportive of the guys
Mhm.
participating in the World Baseball Classic. That's something that I think has changed over the years. I feel like we are getting a chance to see something special because of the fact that not only do players want to be a part of it a bit more, but the clubs are a bit more accepting of letting their high dollar talent go out and participate in this thing that really, man, the grand scheme of things doesn't have anything to do with the team or anything else other than just kind of the love of the game and growing the game of baseball.
Yeah. Well, excuse me. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not the World Cup,
Right.
of course, but
Right.
it's like the World Cup for baseball. It's
Right.
the biggest kind of international tournament, and these guys care. These
Yeah.
guys care about competing for their teams and trying to win. Trying to get first place, trying to win the whole thing, and representing their country the right way. And these guys do care about it because they're like, again, a guy like Seiya Suzuki, he's in America for the first time. It's not like he's so attached to America. It's like Japan's his home.
Yeah.
Japan's where
Yeah.
he spent the first 27 some years of his life.
Right.
Playing baseball, growing up there, whatever it is, like that's his home. And I think, and it's again, I think it also goes to the point where it's like it's been 6 years since the last World Baseball Classic.
Mhm.
Like some of these guys have been like kind of itching to get on those teams again and
Yeah.
do that stuff. And so I just think it's one of those where it would be a disservice for teams to not be supportive of it. I get that you don't want to lose some of these guys during spring training. You don't want some of these guys to leave your team and go wherever for a couple weeks during spring training. But it's also like it's important to these guys. You don't want to piss them off. They're they're on your team. They're your players. Like it's a weird balance. I get it. But it's one of those things where it's just so important to those guys, and
Right.
and the best organizations are the ones that be like, you know what, we know what we have to do to get you ready. We'll figure out how to get you ready before you leave, so that when you come back, there's no problems. Like you're good to go, and you're just going to be ready for opening day regardless.
And I have this thing about the fact that spring training games are also meaningless. So I don't really believe that like playing a spring training game is more important, or like anything comparable, right? But at the same time, you're still probably not going to maybe put your body completely on the line like you would in an MLB game for some sort of, playoff push or something like that. Like it's not, you're probably still going to have guys being careful and making sure, that they're a bit more careful than they would, just like they would in a spring training game or anything like that. But I don't know. I think it's exciting. And I think what it does for the sport is huge. And I think that we have seen it grow from something that people didn't have very much interest into it being it's a damn all-star game this year. Like it's incredible how good some of these teams are.
Team Japan's awesome. Team Puerto Rico, great.
The Dominican Republic team? Are you kidding me? There's
Team USA is awesome too. It's like there's incredible teams in this tournament. And so like, and it's another thing where it's like you have so many guys from Latin American countries or Asia or wherever they're from, and they don't get to play with these guys. Like they're obviously on different teams. Like a guy I'm thinking of, like Javi Baez and Francisco Lindor. Like
Right.
They're not they played together at one point, but now they're on different teams.
Right.
But here's a chance for them to go play with each other for like 2-3 weeks, however long it is. Like guys want that. Like guys, the best players that come from their country, number one, they're all super proud of where they're from. But number two is like, hey, we have this chance to play together. We grew up playing together, whatever it is, or I like watching you play from afar. You like watching. Now we're both in the big leagues. Like, oh, now we get a chance to play together.
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why it's so important to those guys.
And Chris Melton in the comments says Goldie and Trout on the same team. There you go, right there. That is enough for me. Sign me up. Sign me all the way up. But you guys should also, speaking of signing up for things, sign up for the Underdog Fantasy app because nobody wants to play an entire season of fantasy baseball. It is a chore. And instead, what you can do is grab 5 of your friends and you guys can play daily fantasy against each other, draft up to 6 players. Whoever gets the most points with no positional limits wins. It's that simple. Wins cold hard cash. Also, we're talking about pick'ems and we're talking about riding on pitch counts this season. I've been informing everybody that I won $1,000 on pitch counts, picking higher or lower on pitch counts. It's that simple. So you can do that over at the Underdog Fantasy app. And it's easy to get started. Go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app, sign up with promo code PHNX, and Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. Go for the full $100. That way you get that full $100 back. And that was like my last 20 free dollars that got me that $1,000 back. So make sure to sign up today at underdogfantasy.com or download that app. And also check out our friends from OGs, because they're all about flavoring life here in the Valley, and they are all about making spring training even better. So, of course, if you are looking for a way to enjoy all sorts of sports this month, do so with our friends at OGs. They have their brand new strawberries and cream Happy Balance gummies. They are live and on shelves now in dispensaries. As always, you can find them at your local dispensary by checking out ogsbrands.com. Must be 21 years or older to enjoy. It was one of the things I was informing everybody about when they were here for the Super Bowl. Like, hey, just as a reminder, recreational weed is legal here, so enjoy yourselves while you're here. But I know you told me before we got on the air that you have never been to Chase Field, but I imagine obviously you've seen Chase Field plenty of times.
Yeah.
What are your impressions of that stadium? I mean, what are your thoughts when you see the Cubs play the Diamondbacks here?
Here's my thing, and it's not just exclusive.
And don't hold back, by the way.
Well, I'm saying it's not exclusive to Chase Field. It's any domed or rooftop stadium. Like, sure. I hate it.
Yeah.
And I get it. You're in Phoenix. Like, summer's hot. You kind of have to have that. I don't disagree.
It's a necessity. Right.
It's just like the look of it. And maybe, you get biased, the view from Wrigley Field. Like, you get biased, like, especially like a summer night, sunset in the back, a little bit of the skyline. You probably get biased.
You do.
And so whatever. But I don't like it. I have the same issues with like Miller. I guess it's American Family Field now in Milwaukee.
Yeah. They're sister stadiums, by the way. So like they were designed, I think I might be wrong about this, but I believe they were designed by the same company or designer. They look identical.
Yeah, you're
almost.
Right about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So it's not exclusive to Chase Field. I don't like the vibe of the domed stadiums or rooftop stadiums, whatever. It's not like, I don't know how to put it, but like it's not. When I look at it, it's not doesn't stand out to me in any way.
I've always said it's an airplane hangar, is what it is.
It's kind of, I was gonna say it's
like
plain.
it's a big building to store like large equipment in, is what it feels like, right? And right now the Diamondbacks are in the middle of kind of this, not a fight, but a decision. And a decision, Derek Hall told us earlier this week that a decision should be made this summer in regards to the Diamondbacks potentially either extending their lease and staying at Chase Field in downtown Phoenix, or exploring options to build a new stadium somewhere else. They have a lot of money that they want to invest either way, whether it's in a new stadium or in renovations to Chase Field. And obviously we know how historic and important Wrigley Field is to baseball, right? It's the second oldest stadium, second oldest ballpark in baseball. But from your perspective, having gone through it, having watched them kind of renovate and change Wrigley Field over the years, and not just in the stadium, but outside of the stadium, and making that wonderful Wrigleyville, area that so many fans love. Like, would you, and if you had a choice, would you see the Diamondbacks? Would you think that they should move away from this area, or would you see them trying to renovate that big airplane hangar? Because obviously, like you said, it doesn't feel like the roof thing is going to change no matter where they put the ballpark. They're going to have some sort of roof on it, but there's a lot of like things holding them back at Chase Field should they renovate it, because they're still going to be limited on how much they can actually renovate. Yeah.
Again, and it's different with the different type of ballparks from Wrigley and Chase.
Yeah, they couldn't be more different.
No,
to be
exactly.
Honest. Like they couldn't be more different.
I think what the Cubs did when they renovated it, they did a great job of doing what needed to be done. They had the 2 scoreboards put up, and those are great, and they're very helpful. And they, all the other little intricate things that they remodeled, like, have been really good. The press box is better than it used to be, and that's that's the only thing that really affects me at this point is the press box. But it's great. But they did a great job of like making it still feel like Wrigley Field. It's still the ivy, it's still the marquee, it's still the the scoreboard in center field. It still feels like traditional Wrigley Field, even with all this new stuff. And so they did it the right way, in my opinion. Some people don't love it, but their opinion's wrong, in my opinion. From what
that's
Chase
why they're called opinions.
Yeah, I guess Chase doesn't have that kind of like traditional appeal. It's not as old as Wrigley Field
in any way, right?
So,
which is odd because it's still the 4th oldest ballpark in the National League.
Yeah.
So like that's wild to me because it still doesn't feel that way. I have lived in this city, for a considerable amount of time, longer than that stadium even existed. So to hear that it is the 4th oldest stadium makes me obviously feel like a dinosaur. But it also makes me think like, wow, how is that possible? And I guess it's possible because
every other team has done
every other team has done it, and they don't renovate these stadiums, especially when they're not as historically important as a place like Fenway or Wrigley.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I look at it is, and my thing is like, I have not, like you said earlier, I told you I haven't been to Chase Field. I haven't really spent too much time downtown Phoenix. So I don't know what the vibe around the stadium is like. But what I would say is Wrigley is so different because there's so many stadiums in the major leagues that are just right off a highway or in downtown or whatever it is. It doesn't feel like a neighborhood. Wrigley it's Wrigleyville. You mentioned earlier, it's Wrigleyville. It's this neighborhood that like feels like it's built around the stadium. It's not really close to any of the major highways in Chicago. Like you kind of have to drive. You gotta get off a highway.
It's not convenient to get to.
It really is not. It's not convenient. It's not downtown. It's like it's really its own kind of thing, and it feels like it's built around Wrigley. And I don't know if that's possible for Chase Field.
Sure,
but like if they're looking. It's kind of become more of a Wrigley, like the experience. And Vinny Dubers from CHGO, he's our Sox guy, and he's kind of made the argument that, you know, going to Wrigley is more of just like, oh, I'm going to Wrigley, going to like have some drinks and have fun. But you go to the South Side and it's more like, actually, I'm going to a baseball game. And I don't disagree, because Wrigley Field and going to a Cubs game is like more of just the experience of Wrigley Field and going out to the bars or whatever around Wrigley and that kind of stuff. And so what I'm trying to say is, if they can do that, I'm not saying that that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how much money it would take to do that versus just renovating Chase. I have no idea, and I don't know that I care to look into the money wise.
It's not. It's obviously it's going to be cheaper to renovate Chase Field, I think, at the end of the day, but also you're not going to get out of it what you're going to get by having the ballpark built in a new area. They're limited on space. There's a train track behind them. There's a Phoenix Convention Center in front of them that won't allow for like any kind of new entertainment district to be built. And that's kind of what like I think of when you're talking about that. Like it's not going to be like Wrigleyville, but thinking along the lines of Colorado, right? And DNVR, we talked to Patrick. One of the problems that Rockies fans have is that going to the stadium becomes kind of like that, what you're describing. Like people don't go because they love the Rockies and they want to go see the Rockies win a baseball game. They go because it's a fun area to go to. And like, hey, why don't we just catch a baseball game because it's kind of a cool vibe and we can go there and then we can kind of go like
these bars afterward.
Bars, have some dinner, play some laser tag, maybe do some bowling, whatever, because there's so many options of things to do around there. So like with that's the one thing that if the Diamondbacks should pursue the route of staying at Chase Field, which, you know, even though there's not a lot of history there, it's still historic. It's still history to us because it's our only major championship, you know, was won in that building, right? So like it would be weird for them to play baseball elsewhere. They do have Salt River Fields, which is in Scottsdale, and there's a much bigger entertainment district that's kind of growing over there, and it just feels like it's inevitable that that's where it's going to be. Don't know if that's the case, but in that case, that could be at least a situation where they could have not Wrigleyville, but a Wrigleyville like, you know, entertainment district where there's more to do stuff around the ballpark than just going to the ballpark for a game, which is kind of right now the only reason why you would go to Chase Field,
which is not a bad thing either, especially if like the team is good. I'm sure like Chase Field will fill out when it's
sure.
But it's not often that happens, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It does feel like you have to figure out a way to get people to want to go to your game outside of just watching the Diamondbacks. If they're bad, right? If they're a bad team, you got to figure out a way to get people to the baseball field without just saying, "Oh, come watch the Diamondbacks play baseball." Like, you got to figure out some way to do that, and so it is like a very nuanced kind of thing. And I don't want to give my opinion because I just don't know the area.
Sure,
I don't know the history, but I'm like, the way I look at it is if they want to keep it how you were talking about, that's where the World Series was won. It was in Chase Field. Like, if you want to keep it in that kind of sense, and you're in Phoenix, whatever. Like, you could do stuff to make the ballpark itself more appealing.
Absolutely.
But if you want to make it more of an experience and you want to draw better crowds, that just want to be there and hanging out.
It doesn't feel like they can make that happen in that building. That's what
exactly.
it comes down to. But selfishly, I want them to stay there because it's like 2 blocks north of here or south of here, and I like being able to walk there. So
there you go.
That's what I want. Thank you guys, by the way, those of you that are here in the chat. We thank you guys for being here. Of course, if you are not already a PHNX diehard member, make sure to grab yourself that membership. Not only do you get Jesse, who is currently not here, but he's still, I'm sure, writing his wonderful full count newsletter, as well as Gerald, Craig, Howard, all of our full set of writers newsletters from gophnx.com, as well as a wonderful piece of merch from the phnxlocker.com. Every year you're a member, 20% off all future purchases, members exclusive merch, members exclusive invites to events, discounts with our partners, members exclusive Discord lounge, and so much more. Make sure to grab that membership over at gophnx.com. If you're here right now in the YouTube channel, we thank you guys for being here. Make sure to subscribe. If you haven't done that yet, sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when any ever our shows go live. Words are hard sometimes. And also for Jesse, who's not here, give us a thumbs up just so that he knows that we can still go on without him, right? Like, I need as many likes on this show just so that he doesn't get a big head thinking like, oh, look, people aren't watching now because I'm not there, because you know he will. You would know he will. And if you're listening to us on your favorite audio podcasting app, please subscribe to us there as well. Leave us a review. We always appreciate the feedback. I promised I wasn't going to do this anymore, but for our DraftKings pick of the week, I have to pick the Phoenix Suns. And I know what you're going to say. Derek, did you not get the memo that Kevin Durant is not playing for the Suns yet? Yes,
he's not playing?
Not yet. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen Friday. According to reports, it sounds like he won't be hitting the court until next Wednesday at the earliest, and it may even be later than that. And after experiencing what I experienced with Ketel Marte and his injuries this season, what I have to say is, Kevin, you take as much time as you need. You take all the time, because we need you healthy and ready for the playoffs, and not to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder, which the Suns are going to beat. If you want to be a little crazy with it, I'd say they're going to cover the spread at -8.
Wow.
But you can also go with the money line at -330. I don't know. The Thunder are a pretty damn good team that not enough people give credit to this season, but I don't know. The Suns are just rocking and rolling right now. And of course, because I said that, they're probably going to lose by 20. So I know. Go ahead and tweet me and yell at me now. But also keep an eye out on the DraftKings Sportsbook. They have the no sweat same game parlays. Guys, get your money back. Get a free bet should your bet not hit. Not to mention a bevy of options to opt in at. So make sure to check that out. You have to opt in on those, so don't miss that in case you do jump on the app and want to make a same game parlay. Also, I love the live betting this year on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. I don't know why. I feel like it makes live sporting events more exciting when you can just kind of hop in and bet mid-game. And I've been doing that quite a bit on basketball. So make sure to do that over at the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And of course, if you haven't done so already, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use our code of PHNX. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly, only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And sir, I appreciate you being here, enjoying a wonderful Four Peaks with me. Again, another benefit. We could talk pro wrestling and Four Peaks. Would drink Four Peaks beer without Jesse being here.
I was gonna say, you might need me to come down to Phoenix more often.
I might need that. I might need that for sure. But of course, it's a trap this time of the year, right? When people come out for spring training, this weather isn't the weather, but the March weather you were talking about. That's the weather where you see that and you're like, I want to move here. And then it's like, this doesn't stick around. This isn't for long.
Nope.
But of course, there's all sorts of wonderful things to do in this time of the year because we have this wonderful weather. So grab yourself a Four Peaks. I'm going to be out at Innings Fest this weekend. So I don't know if any of you guys are going to be out there, but of course, if you are, shout at me. Come on, say hi. I will probably have one of these in my hand there and getting ready for the official launch of spring training the following week. But make sure to check out fourpeaks.com events calendar at fourpeaks.com/events for all your beer week entertainment. And of course, because I'm going to be at the old Innings Fest, I will not be able to participate, unfortunately, in the beer can derby. So I need somebody to participate on my behalf. All you have to do is go pick up your kit now and make the winning beer can derby car. Cheat if you have to. Remember, we said that if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And if speed and adrenaline is your speed, then the beer can derby on February 25th is where you need to be at Four Peaks A Street Pub in Tempe. Show us that you have the fastest beer can in the valley. Sign up now through fourpeaks.com/events. Must be 21 years or older to enjoy, and enjoy responsibly. Well, Ryan, I think I am going to have you on here again more. We need to cheers again to Jesse not being here, and of course, all of kind of the best of luck to your Cubs. I can't give you all the luck. There was picture day today, by the way, and we have this beautiful image that we want to show before we go of this baby boy. Look at that guy. Oh, we miss you. We miss that guy. How excited are you guys to have this Dansby Swanson character as part of your lineup?
I mean, I think when it first happened, Cubs fans weren't like happy. Not that they weren't happy. It was just kind of the fact
wasn't this big signing.
He wasn't like what Carlos Correa or Trey Turner, because maybe he just doesn't have. Maybe he just doesn't have the upside those kind of guys have.
Sure.
But he's still. I mean, he was an all-star last year. I want to say, where he won the World Series. He was a Gold Glove last year. Like, he's still a very, very good player that you got for a lot less money than those guys gave. And this is the point that I made. When all the Carlos Correa, he's not going to sign with the Mets anymore. He's not going to sign with when all that crap was going down. I was like, there were still Cubs fans that were pissed that why didn't the Cubs give Correa 6 years, whatever the hell it was. And I'm like, why is everyone mad? Like, shouldn't you guys be happy that you got Dansby Swanson, who's a very good player, and you don't have to worry about all this crap with Carlos Correa? You don't have to. This
13-year contract where he might spend 6 of it completely injured and unable to play.
You got a great player, and you should be happy with him because he's going to be a very good player. And just the few interactions we've had with him so far. Obviously, spring training just started. A little over a week ago.
Yeah.
The interactions we've had with him, he has a very good head on his shoulders. He brings that kind of leadership quality that the Cubs are looking for. The Cubs are building this kind of culture in the clubhouse. I think that's kind of how the foundation of that team is starting to be. You obviously on-field results matter, but the foundation of it is like the clubhouse matters too.
Yeah.
Because when you look at baseball, it's such an individualized sport on the field,
right?
That the biggest like team thing they do is like that clubhouse.
Yeah.
Right? So the clubhouse culture matters so much, and like Dansby was such a huge addition for that. As far as just like everything he talks about is winning. Everything he talks about it's all the right things. It seems like, and a lot of players do that, of course.
Sure.
But he's someone that's experienced that, right? In Atlanta, he's won the World Series. He knows what it takes.
He saw how it translated over from the clubhouse into being something that they win.
Yeah, he won the Gold Glove. He's someone that he's only. He's not that old, but it feels like he's been around for a long time, and he's like kind of discovered. He feels like one of those really big veteran additions that teams make.
Like he's wise beyond his years.
Yeah. So he's one of those. It feels like one of those big additions those teams make when they're kind of on the brink. And he's like the second or third highest paid player in Cubs history as far as like total dollars. So they're betting a lot on him.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's the kind of guy that this team really needed to kind of take that next step.
Yeah.
They're still a ways away. They still got to kind of prove that they're on that right trajectory. But, Dansby feels like one of those guys that when you look back on what they did this offseason, no, he wasn't Carlos Correa or Trey Turner and who they are right now, but he may be better for this team in the long run than they probably would have been. You never know. You never know how things are going to play out over a contract like that. But
that's the thing, and that's why those contracts are crazy to me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? When you're talking about 12 years, 13 years, like it's wild to me.
Like who Bogarts, I think, got 13, right? He's he's going to get paid whatever million when he's 40 years
41 years old, playing baseball, looking like me with this gray beard I was talking about earlier. Nobody wants that. But you know what? One thing we can both agree on right now is at least our mutual hatred for our favorite players going to the St. Louis Cardinals. So glad to have you here. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a safe trip home and best of luck to your Cubs this season. Definitely follow these guys over at CHGO_Cubs, especially you Cubs fans out there. I know there's some of you here in Phoenix for sure. But
tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. We thank you guys, of course, for being here. You can follow me at Cap_Caveman with a K. He is at Ryan_A_Herrera. That's a lot of underscores. We need to talk about that.
We had to figure that. Well, the reason I never changed it is because they were going to take away my blue check mark. But they're going to do that anyway now. So whatever.
Now just make it whatever.
Who cares?
You can't control us, Elon. Our show is at PHNX_DBacks, but of course, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Again, we thank you guys so much for being here on behalf of Damon, Ryan, and myself. We always appreciate your time. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when we can make fun of Jesse because he's not here.